That we have a good chance, if we get the tax cut, to have a good 2 or 3 years and possibly longer of prosperity. We have a good chance to make a dent in this unemployment, which has been with us for the last 5 years. When you think of the number of people that are coming into the labor market every year, we have to find about 35,000 new jobs every week just to almost hold our own. That's why I keep coming back to the tax cut. I think that, and we have a history in the 50s of, particularly at the end, of sluggishness. We had a recession in 58, a recession in 60. We've had a higher rate of unemployment than any country in the West in the last 5 years. I think we have to move ahead in the same way, for example, that the British. It's rather interesting that the British government, which has a conservative party, put its tax cut in effect in 1 month. A larger tax cut that we've been talking about for a year, they put into effect in 1 month. And the fact is the British economy is now booming, and its unemployment has been cut. I think we can do the same.
Is it becoming apparent that the idea of deficits cannot, we're not recording them, cannot be sold to the American people?
I think it's damn difficult. I think we just have to...
You think it's impossible to sell it to them?
Well, God, we've been trying, and we told Truman, he wants to be helpful, and he is helpful in every chance he gets. When I just think of that British experience, of course, it's fantastic what they're able to do. Without, I mean, there were objections to them for not doing enough. Why everybody thinks that recession and unemployment, which is next year, I don't say you can keep, by next April, this will be the longest peacetime recovery since the longest economic period of economic expansion since the Civil War. So, I mean, you're bound to have the dip down. You know?
The British quick, immediate.
The worst deficit comes from a recession. And if we can take the proper action in the proper time, this can be the most important step we could take to prevent another recession. That is the right kind of a tax cut, both for your family budget and the national budget, resulting from a permanent basic reform and reduction in our rate structure, a creative tax cut, creating more jobs and income, and eventually more revenue. And the right time for that kind of bill, it now appears, in the absence of an economic crisis today, and if the job is to be done in a responsible way, is January 1963. Such a bill will be presented to the Congress for action next year. It will include an across-the-board, top-to-bottom cut in both corporate and personal income taxes. It will include long-needed tax reform that logic and equity demand. And it will date that cut in taxes to take effect as of the start of next year, January 1963. The billions of dollars this bill will place in the hands of the consumer and our businessmen will have both immediate and permanent benefits to our economy. Every dollar released from taxation that is spent or invested will help create a new job and a new salary. And these new jobs and new salaries can create other jobs and other salaries, and more customers and more growth for an expanding American economy. Instead of being permanently saddled with excess planned capacity and the budgetary deficit that is created by this means, our goal must be full capacity and full employment and the budgetary surpluses that that kind of employment and capacity can produce.
Mr. President, Harry Truman was out for his walk this morning, and he said he did not think we should have a tax cut until we get the budget balanced. And the other day, Senator Humphrey was saying in the Senate that what the American people think is true is very often more important than what actually is true. In view of all that, what do you think about cutting taxes while the budget is still in deficit?
The reason the government's in deficit is because you've got more than 4 million people unemployed. And because for the last 5 years, you've had rather a sluggish growth, much slower than any other Western country. I'm in favor of a tax cut because I'm concerned that if we don't get the tax cut, that we're going to have an increase in unemployment and that we may move into a period of economic downturn. We had a recession in 58, recession in 1960. We've done pretty well since then, but we still have over 4 million unemployed. And I think this tax cut can give the stimulus to our economy over the next 2 or 3 years. I think it will provide for greater national wealth. I think it will reduce unemployment. I think it will strengthen our gold position. So I think that the proposal we've made is responsible and in the best interest of the country.
Economic response to Britain's tax cut seemed to be almost immediate. Would it be as immediate in this country, do you think?
I think it would be. Interestingly enough, the British came forward with their tax cut in April, passed it within a month. They're experiencing the economic benefits for it. Unemployment's been substantially reduced. They have a larger deficit than we do. Yet the only criticism was that it wasn't enough. Nearly every economist has supported that. I think that it's in the best economic interest of the country, unless this country just wants to drag along, have 5 or 6 million people unemployed, have profits reduced, have economic prospects, have our budget unbalanced by a much larger proportion. The largest unbalanced budget in the history of this country was in 1958 because of the recession, $12.5 billion. The fact of the matter is, of course, government expenditures do go up in every administration, but the country's wealth goes up. President Eisenhower spent $185 billion more than President Truman. But the country was much wealthier. It's much wealthier now than it was in the last year of President Eisenhower's administration. I think our economic situation can be very good. I think what we proposed is a responsible answer to a problem which has been part of our economic life for 5 or 6 years, and that is slack, failure to grow sufficiently, relatively high unemployment. And if you put that together with the fact that we have to find 35,000 new jobs a week, I think the situation in this country calls for a tax reduction this year.